Hello and welcome again. Hope you're connected. If you're online, please give us a hello. Let me just make sure the technology is working and people can hear me okay, can see me okay. Before we get started into this yet another exciting and amazing session. Looking forward to getting into this fourth session about taking action and actually implementing what we've learned from the previous sessions. Uh, Thumbs up if you can hear me okay. Just let me double check everything, make sure the technology is working and no issues. Everything looks to be good. So we will get started. So today, again, we are really taking from the Leadership Handbook that's about to be launched, Volume 1, 196 different strategies in there that you can apply in your coaching or leadership. It's very exciting. So I am in part 1 of the book, and these videos will be available to you when you purchase the book. If you want to access these videos, you'll have the opportunity to do that. So let's get started with our presentation. Let me just get things set up the right way and we can go. All right. So today is about the core principles that multiply your impact. Okay, so just a quick recap. We've done multiple sessions. We've talked about awareness, clarity, and emotional intelligence. Today, we go to the last step in this 4-step process. And next week, we will wrap up with some additional information to bring it all together. And then we will go into part 2 of the book and we'll dive into that. So I'm going to share today the 5 non-negotiable principles of high-impact leaders so that you can apply these. They're simple, they're easy, and you'll see just how effective that can be in your practice. So if you're working as a coach with leaders, then this is going to be very useful for you because you are the accountability to helping them achieve these. If you are a leader, you'll want to practice these things. Practice makes perfect, not perfect practice, but repetition allows you to really indoctrinate this information and be very effective with it. So today, the gap from learning to leading. Okay, we'll talk about that, the 5 core principles. I'll give you an implementation framework and talk about the next steps. So what is this really about? Okay, a lot of leaders, a lot of coaches actually as well that I meet and talk to, they want more information, they want more learning, they want more, which is really just providing entertainment for them, all this knowledge and information. If you do nothing with it, then nothing is going to happen. So you might as well just call it entertainment. You love to read stuff or you love to attend courses. Just be honest with yourself. If you're not applying it, then you're really not learning for the sake of improvement. Okay, you just enjoy it. Right. So the learning to leadership gap, for most people, they tend to get into being over-informed. You know, it's almost the underpinning behind imposter syndrome. Okay, I don't like the label. I think it's an incorrect label in 80% of the cases, and it's just because someone doesn't feel like they have enough information to execute. And so they spend time looking for more information, looking to perfect things, right? And they don't achieve the impact that they want to in their business or their lives because of that. So great intentions, we've talked about this many times, does not equal good results. Behavior intelligence is all about the impact of the behavior, the action that you take. So if you don't take any action, you might have the best intentions in the world, but behavior is the thing that actually gets you the results. So, and also we can't project someone's intention just by observing their behavior, but we need to understand the behavior well enough to be able to decipher that and not project the wrong intentions. Analysis paralysis. Okay, all of these things are really tied to wanting to be a great leader, but maybe going about it the wrong way. So let's take a look at the right way to do this. Okay, so traditional approaches, people tend to, as I mentioned, they study a lot of things, they overcomplicate things, or the opposite, they just try generic solutions, one size fits all methods. Doesn't work. Acumatch has already shown us that every person on the planet is unique. Every map that Acumatch delivers as a result is a unique map of almost an fMRI of someone's brain. And every person is unique. We've done tests with identical twins, and we've proven the fact that the DNA doesn't matter. The nurture is what's important. Yes, there are exceptions, but as a rule, that's the conditioning that takes place. And that's why we can have identical twins at the DNA level, and they can have totally different careers, totally different attitude, interests, etc. Okay, I digress. So high impact approach is simple. I'm going to show you the 5 steps today. You apply it with specificity. Okay, and the reason Acumatch, again, if I bring that into the conversation, the reason Acumatch uses specific scores about behavior in the context of work is when we get specific, we remove the generalization, we remove the labels, and we get results because people know exactly what to do, what's expected, how to approach it. That level of information is really critical and important. You don't have to come up with it all, okay? But you need to be aware that specificity is what gets results and taking action with that information. But let's not get into the perfectionist approach. So we'll talk about that. Context-driven, keeping an eye on the objectives, the goals, the context. Each person will have a different context. Those things are really critical to do that. Okay, focus on what to do. So successful leaders consistently apply these 5 core principles, which I'm going to dive into each one of these. They get clarity before action. They influence through understanding. Communication is about understanding, and misunderstanding is just a 4-letter word as far as I'm concerned. Okay, so seeking understanding, progression over perfection, right? Look at ways to take little baby steps, improve, tweak. That's our humanity. That's how human beings got to be where we are today, is because we try things, our brain goes, oh, that didn't work, this worked, we'll try something else, we improve, we tweak. It's a feedback loop. Use it, okay? We'll talk about that. Applying systems. We've spent a lot of time in the last few months talking about technology, automation, process, and The method that I've shared with you is process, automate, delegate. The rest is yours. Okay. If you haven't done that yet, reach out and I'll share that with you. It's in one of the videos that's online. Okay. And then focusing on results rather than busyness or activity. These are critical things to keep in mind. My clicker stops working sometimes, but here we go. Okay, so let's take the first one. What does it mean? Clarity before action. Okay, the principle is never act without clarity of purpose, outcome, and method. So clarity of where you want to get to, clarity of what you want to do the research, right? If you don't have enough information, go and find that information, okay? So that you can have that clarity to do that. When you act haphazardly without really doing that research and understanding and so forth, you just create confusion. You have to backtrack. You have to, justify your decision based on bullying or autocratic tactics because you don't want to get found out that you didn't do the work, right? Can you explain your intention in one sentence when you are giving direction to the team or to someone? If you're a coach working with your client, can you explain that succinctly so that they can actually fully comprehend the objective of why we are doing something? When people know the reason for doing something and how it affects them, I'm going to talk about that, they are far more effective, they will exceed expectations and stay. Again, my formula for successful leadership, the only measure of successful leadership is you have a team that has reached the level where they exceed your expectations and they want to stay. That's awesome. Okay. So clarity before action. Here is an application. Before any significant action, get clear on what's the purpose, what's the outcome, how are we going to do that, how are we going to measure it, okay, and what are we going to practice on a daily basis to actually help us get there. Now, if I just go back through these, and I read them fairly quickly, the purpose. Sometimes you need to do the research, what are we doing? Why are we doing it? How are we going to do it? Okay. So these are critical steps that if you don't have those before you give instructions, start a project, or create a new product, if you don't do that work, then you can't keep the team aligned. You can't build the daily, weekly practice habits that will get you there. So those habits, which we'll talk about, are important to know what we're aligning to in order to stay focused on that. I used to use an example of a bullseye on a target. Okay, if you're not linked, in fact, if you were to walk up to the bullseye and put the arrow in the bullseye, tie a string back to you, you would constantly, no matter what you do, be constantly drawn back to that bullseye. If you don't have that, you're just drifting around all over the place and there is no direction to get back into that. So that's a really good way of looking at that. The helicopter view I use sometimes as well, right? So if you're in the helicopter and the team below you, doesn't matter whether it's mountains or ocean, can you provide them direction? Because you can see from the helicopter view where the goal is, where the outcome is. So you're giving direction based on real information, facts, not assumptions, not guessing. Okay, these are all critical, important points. Here's an example. The vague, unclear approach that I hear all the time, and I catch those consistently, is we need to improve communication. How vague is that? What does that really mean? Can you unpack that? Can you bring it back to what is the observable behavior that I can see and other people can see that actually imply that? Okay. In this example, we're going to have weekly team meeting updates. It's just going to focus on updates. And our goal is to reduce delays in projects by 50% within the next 30 days. Very clear, very precise. You can observe it, you can measure it, you can actually see who's doing it, who's not doing it, and involve people. And they can be excited by that because they know where they're going. Okay. Specific purpose, measurable, defined time frame. Those are SMART goals type approach, but we're looking at it from the behavior intelligence side of things, why that's important, how effective that is, how it helps people. Okay. Principle number 2, influence through understanding. Okay, and that's a really important one. So, understand others before seeking to be understood. Okay, that's really the listening first, right? So people follow leaders who get them, not leaders who talk at them, right? So don't just puke out directions without really engaging them and getting their input, doing some listening. Everybody can contribute something. If your role as a leader is to direct and manage and give instructions, then it's going to be limited. You're going to be the bottleneck. Okay. If your leadership style is to, I call it the incubator, to help people be the best that they can be and to grow and get past you, basically. And sometimes they'll leave. That's why I call it an incubator. It's okay, right? Because while they were there, they did some amazing things for you because of the way you treated them. When they left, they still talk about what you did for them. These are all great things about great leaders, right? So move from trying to convince and push things and ram things down people's throat and connect with them, engage with them, understand them. Okay, so you don't use that 4-letter word that I mentioned that we refer to as misunderstanding. Oh, I'm sorry, I misunderstood what you wanted. Well, that is a direct result of poor communication, poor listening, poor engagement, poor leadership. Okay. So if you ever hear that 4-letter word, all right, you need to look at the whole process, look at yourself, look at the team, and look at how that communication is taking place. Mm-hmm. So before trying to influence anyone, these are the things that you can ask yourself and look at. Okay, what do we care most about? And it's not what do I care most about, it's what do they care most about. Okay, understanding your team, if they're not aligned with the corporate direction and the goals and the culture and all of that, maybe they don't belong there, and you'll probably find that they will deselect themselves out. Okay. But when you have the team and you do this well with them and they are engaged because of how you treat them and how it's aligned with their goals, you get much better results. Okay. What's their biggest challenge right now? I'm looking at them not as just in life, but looking at their objectives that they have in their role. Okay, what are the biggest challenges? What are the biggest obstacles? And we'll talk about how to solve those. Okay. All right. The Sorry, there's a technical issue. Let's just make sure that we're okay. How does your proposal help them? How does your plan, your strategy help them? Does it take into consideration what they're sharing as challenges? Does it help move that forward? What concerns might they have? Don't go overboard with this stuff, trying to lose sleep over trying to figure it out so that you can actually predict how they're going to respond to you. No, show up, share it, be open to receiving the criticism, listen, speak, talk, discuss, be open to that. Okay, that's great leadership as opposed to directing, managing, being autocratic in your approach. So the high impact approach versus the low impact approach. The low impact just comes in, presents their idea, waits for feedback. If that didn't work, we'll try something else. The high impact approach is understand their priorities, connect your idea with their goals, their objectives. Okay. And AccuMatch can help you do that. You need to do the AccuMatch. You need to have the AccuMatch conversation with each member on your team, with your clients if you're a coach, so that you help them to unpack their goals and to share their goals with you. And sometimes they're hidden in their wiring and they don't even know that those things exist. And that's why AccuMatch is so powerful. Okay, and that's why behavioral intelligence is the foundation to becoming an intelligent leader, an effective leader. Okay, understand their concerns, proactively make it about their success, and if you do that, they will get to that formula that I mentioned, which is exceeding expectations and stay, right? Okay, you don't want everybody to flourish, and because of your leadership style, they're superstars and they leave and you're left with nobody. So you need to also understand how to keep people. Okay, and that's the incubator that I talked about. Now we talk about the perfectionist. I'm sharing a lot of information. A lot of people are going to come back to me and say, oh, how do I do this? How do I do that? Just do it. Okay. I think I was chatting to one of the coaches on our podcast the other day, and the Nike slogan, just do it. What an amazing, simple slogan, right? Okay. So overthinking it, trying to perfect it, the best approach is try something small, practice it. Perfection is the enemy of progress and momentum. Okay, what's the phrase? It takes you 20% of the effort to get 80% of the plan done, or the project, or the goal, or the research, and then it takes you 80% of the effort to get the last 20% figured out, perfection, right? We don't want to waste that, because no one has a crystal ball. Nobody can predict what's going to happen when you present this to the team. No one can predict when you launch a product how the world's going to respond to that. So trying to predict every possible scenario, Steve Jobs would never have launched Apple if he didn't have this approach of let's put it out, let's find out what happens, and people have learned from that. So we're all learning to be comfortable to fail. Okay, so what's the smallest step that you can take today? Pick a project, pick a team member that you want to work with. It doesn't matter whether it's a people development or a KPI that you want to achieve in your business. The approach is the same. Okay. So instead of waiting for perfection, start with what you know, what you have. Take the next logical step. It's a baby step, all right? And then be prepared to adjust based on feedback. That's the critical piece, and that's part of our humanity. If you could see my whiteboard behind here, you could see that the physiology, our physiology is to do with observing. We see, we hear, we touch, we smell, we taste. Okay, these are all things that we take in that allow our brain to go, oh, this is good, this is bad. It's feedback, and then we try something else. Okay, and the same with every single person on your team. The same is true of every project, every product that you launch. You need to be open to that feedback. Be ready for it. Accept it, whether you like it or not. Yes, there's going to be stuff that is just way out there that you can just put it in a separate bucket for later. But the majority of it is really telling you what's going on. So, an example again, okay, the perfectionist approach, spending 3 months designing and perfecting the communications plan for a company, only to have it go wrong even on day one. The right approach is, start with the weekly check-in, add something small, add a status update, we used to call them steering committee meetings, but they can just be, reporting tools, right? And refine. If you don't get the information that you want to get you to your goal, well, maybe that is not data that you want to collect, and collect the right data. So, sometimes we collect way too much data and 80% of it never gets used. And so take time to test and measure and figure out what's going to work. And then you can expand what's working, okay? So once you've hit a target, you can expand that. One client I was working with, we had a target of booking 5 meetings a week for him. And what we discovered was we were booking the 5 meetings, but he wasn't achieving his goal. And so we needed to figure out, was it the type of meetings that he was having? Was it the qualifying process? Or was it the conversion from meeting to sale, to the objective, whatever it was? So the understanding that you can measure the wrong thing and you need to test and figure out what to measure needs a process. Okay, if you don't have a process and steps, you can't do this. I think that's our next slide, which is really systems over effort. Okay, if you can't document a process, you can't improve it, you can't automate it, you can't delegate it even. Okay, so you need to be able to do that, just like I explained with those steps. Okay, there is the reaching to people, there is the convincing them to have a meeting. Those are all steps. Then they need to attend the meeting. That's another step. If they don't attend the meeting, you need to look at why that's happening. Okay, when they do attend the meeting, what's the conversion rate from that, and how long do they stay? These are all the steps. You think you're doing them automatically, and a lot of people say, I have to be present because it's unique, it's me. No, it's not. If you document the process, you can actually tweak it, perfect it. Well, not perfect it, but be able to delegate it, automate it, and so on. Right. And with AI now, we've launched so many new functions, automation, right? AI can, for instance, respond to my Facebook messages. It can automatically create posts that I check and validate and delegate the graphics to one of my team members before it goes live. All of these things, just imagine how much labor thing, intensive. Thank you. That was before all of these systems and processes existed, right? So ask the question. Okay, if I know the process, what parts of this, and my method, what parts of this can I automate? What parts of these can be delegated? And what's left over that only I can do? Okay, so process, automate, delegate, I, right? I think there's an acronym there, right? Process, automate, PA, okay, delegate, DI, PADI. Yeah, Patty. Yeah, we'll have to get a character for it. Cool. Have fun. That's how we learn, so it's important. All right, so application. For any recurring challenge, create a system for it. So if it repeats more than once, then it means that it's going to happen again. And if it happens again, that means there's a system, there's a process there that when you look at it, you can actually improve it, automate it, delegate it, etc. Okay. So clear criteria for the decision. Keep in mind the goal at the very bottom there, right? Okay. Communication, talk regularly. I know one of my first major projects that I was brought into, was I think a $40 million project with hundreds of people around the world working on it. And it was a year behind schedule. And how I fixed that was really just get people talking daily. Start a day, end a day. What are we going to do today? What did we do today? Right? And it was across multiple countries. Okay. So we had time zone barriers. We had all kinds of barriers, language barriers, but we overcome them and we overcame them, and we actually achieved a launch within a very short time frame, just because people could communicate or were forced to communicate in that instance. Okay, have a checklist. Every recurring process should have a checklist. Okay, so if we talk about some of the examples that I shared earlier, okay, the challenge was identifying what the step is and then creating a checklist. Did we do that? Does it have this? So if we are reaching out to somebody, does that person, meet this criteria? Does it meet that criteria? Right? Before booking the meeting, right? You can do that. Problem solving, escalation paths, in tech support especially. A lot of people in customer support, technical support, they're measured on how many they can fix, not on how many they actually solve. Okay, and that's the more critical one, and having an escalation path so that a problem never hangs around too long or doesn't get closed just because I need to hit my KPI. So I want to get the person off the phone. I go, yes, are you okay now? Thanks, see you later, bang. I tick that off as hit my KPI, but the person calls back in an hour saying, no, that didn't work, right? That is poor KPI settings. Make sure you're measuring the right KPIs. I think I've already given an example here, but here's another one, right? Spending time reviewing every proposal, right? Train your team on the standards that you expect instead of getting all of these things and everybody's doing all kinds of different things. Have a checklist so that they can actually go through and know what you're expecting to see in that proposal, right? Build a process, do some automation. If you want it checked by somebody else before it comes to you, what's that workflow? When they say it's ready, it should go to maybe your assistant or your general manager first, before it comes to you. So those kinds of tools are important. And then finally, and I just talked a little bit about that, is measuring and focusing on busyness as opposed to the results. Okay. We don't care really, and you probably hear this all the time. I don't care how you do this, as long as you get the results that I'm looking for. Well, in reality, you should care because there might be processes, there might be things that they are missing, they may not have all the systems and tools. These are the 5 things that I just talked about, right? Or the 4 things prior to this that I just talked about. So people will want to say, oh, well, look how busy I am. Busyness is not business, okay? Is not effective. It's not about getting results. Okay. So shift your focus from hours worked to goals achieved, okay? Don't care about hours worked, care about results achieved. Meetings attended versus decision make. Who showed up to the meeting as opposed to what did we accomplish at those meetings? Did we have clear objectives and outcomes from that meeting? Reports written versus problem solved. Okay. And tasks completed. Okay. So, and this is stuff that you need to practice. We had 5 meetings this week. Who cares? Okay. As opposed to we solved 3 project bottlenecks that accelerated delivery. That's far better result. Okay. The measuring, people spend too much time measuring effort, KPIs, numbers that are really not that relevant, as I mentioned earlier. Okay. So the implementation framework, it's a 5-step process. Step 1, choose 1 principle per week. Don't try to fix everything in 1 week. In fact, we're really talking about the month. Okay. Identify 3 specific applications in your current role or functions or things that you do, right? Implement a small experiment, measure and adjust, and then scale what works. Okay. So let's just talk a little bit more about that. So to build your credibility, you need to ask, how can I help before offering a solution? All right. So tell me what's going on. What's the problem? Okay. What challenges do you have? We always start with all our sessions, all our meetings with, tell me your successes, tell me your challenges. Okay. Next, right? Everybody goes first before the manager, leader, coach starts to participate and solve problems, right? Okay. Follow through on every commitment without exception. That's credibility. Okay. If you say you're going to do something by a certain time, a certain date, make sure you do it. Don't my brain's a fog today. So overachieve as opposed to exceed, setting high expectations that you can't achieve just to impress. Okay. Admit when you don't know and find out. Go research it. If you don't know something, then you're going to be making assumptions. You're going to guess. You're going to upset people. If you don't know something, just come out and say it, right? and make decisions when other people hesitate. It doesn't have to be a right decision. You just need to do something. Okay, give credit. Take the blame if you have to. Okay. So morning and evening, let's just talked about some of that, right? So what are we going to practice today? At the end of the day, how much of that did we achieve? What was the reality? Did I stay focused on that, or did I get distracted? If you don't do the morning, evening regularly every day, you're not going to start to actually implement anything, because your brain is going to say, it wasn't important anyway, so don't worry about it. That's what your brain is doing in the background of all of that. So when you start practicing it, your brain goes, ooh, he's serious about this, right? Okay, and you get results. All right. So review your leadership audit. Here is how it works. Where was I clear and versus unclear? Okay. When did I influence versus convince? Right? You don't want to be convincing. You want to motivate, excite, inspire people. We call that influencing, as opposed to pushing stuff on people to convince them. Right? What progress did I make instead of trying to be perfect? Okay. What systems did I build to reduce effort, to elevate people's activity to stuff that they can realize and achieve? Okay. So get started now. Choose one principle. Apply it to 3 specific situations. It's a good example, and then track the results. Don't just come up with one and then do nothing, and then people go, that was pointless. Oh, look, he's come up with another one this week. Well, that's not going to get done either, I guess. Right? So you're training people not to respect your ideas, your suggestions, and what we're trying to do is the opposite of that. So walk the talk, basically. Okay. So this month, okay, if you do that weekly, you'll get 4 to 5 things done, right? So be sure to monitor that. And remember to be human. You're not going to be perfect at this or good at it even in the first week. Okay, the first couple of weeks, you're going to miss days. You got to pick yourself up and get back on it. You're going to forget stuff. You got to remember that you're human still and stuff happens. We call those actually pattern interrupts. Even when you've got a pattern that's really working, something can happen that you didn't expect, and it interrupts that process, and you forget it, right? And it doesn't get done. Allow that to be human and say, look, that's an exception. Tomorrow we will get back onto that and get back on it. Okay. Too many people give up because of the one miss. Okay. Week 3 and 4, it will become more natural, be more comfortable. By month 2, you are really practicing those habits, and it's really by month 3 that you've been doing this long enough that you start to see the power of those results, okay, and be more effective. So from a principle that I've provided to a real system that you can follow, it's 5 steps. Clarity first, understanding and understanding yourself, your team, taking that time to do that, and taking action, make progress. Don't try to perfect it. Okay, put systems in place, automate, delegate, right? And 5 is monitor results, not activity. Okay, so those are the 5 things. Okay, so that's it for today. Next week, I dive into session 5, okay, your 30-day leadership transformation plan. I will go through that. We will integrate those 4 different topics and help you create your personalized roadmap so you can actually apply these. And you can always contact us and reach out if you want help with that. So I'm hoping your takeaways today, you don't need to boil the ocean. You can take small steps. You need to just do it. Action speaks louder than words. Simple phrase, but it means a lot. Okay. Intentions. Nobody cares what's going on in your head. They only care about what you say and do. So just get on with it. Okay. So 7-day action plan. You can use this and back it up with the monthly plans that I mentioned. All right. So do something for 7 days. Day 8, share your success, right? If you don't log it, your brain will forget what it is. You'll get all kinds of interpretations. So do track and register your successes from the stuff that you did. And sometimes it's not going to be successful, right? And it's okay to measure those as well. Join me next week. Reach out, get access to our assessment tools, and don't forget the book is coming out. So watch for this, and stay tuned for our next week's session. All right, if I just go back to that. Whoa, let's finish up here. All right, and I look forward to seeing you all next week. Take care. Have a good week.